Welcome to episode 94.
Being a child-free woman.
Join us as we discuss the challenges and rewards that come from the choice to be a childless woman.
How that plays out in our lives and as witches.
Stay tuned. Welcome to the Witchy Wit podcast, where we look at life through a witchy lens. I'm Kimberlyn.
I'm Leilani.
At Witchy Wit, we explore current events,
Ideas,
music and books,
and experiences in ways that recognize energy and life in everybody and everything.
We are both real witches.
And we bring two real perspectives through the lens of our different ages,
Races,
and backgrounds.
with a healthy skepticism for what we have been told is true. Our conversations are raw, candid, and vulnerable.
Join us as we cast a spell to uncover what we each know is true in our intuitive, witchy selves.
Welcome to episode 94.
Being a child-free woman. Woohoo!
Yeah, it's woohoo and deep.
And
right?
whoa.
And whoa. There we go. Woohoo and whoa. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Would you like to kind of give us our anticipatory set?
Absolutely. So we'll start off with a check-in and then have a conversation about being a child-free woman, because both of us are, and talk about the joys and complexities of that. How's that for a really brief summary?
There we go. I love that.
And then read a poem.
Yay. But before we do that, let's kind of talk a little bit about what's happened since we last got together.
That sounds awesome.
When did I get started? I'm not normally someone who obsesses over my weight, but I've been keeping track of my weight because I've been trying to be really, really mindful of my water intake and my protein. I just started seeing a new doctor, a naturopath, and one of the things that she said was that I should be drinking, and this is some other work that I've been doing too, that I should be drinking half my weight in ounces of water, and I should be eating half my desired weight, thank God, in grams of protein, which are I think, obviously if you're a bodybuilder or if you're digging ditches, it's going to be different, but or super hot and you're running outside like you used to do, but I think it's kind of at least a place to start. And as I've been charting my water, I think we've talked about the fact that I felt that I was severely dehydrated in Spain, and as I've been charting my water, I realized a lot of people come to the realization that they don't drink enough. And I knew I didn't, but I didn't realize how bad it was until I started charting it, and how easy it is to do it if you're mindful. Like it used to be, I couldn't drink a 16-ounce glass of water. I'd have to stop, whatever. Now it's like, throw that baby back, mark it on my Fitbit, and keep moving. So it's been eye-opening. The protein has worked real well because I keep forgetting. I have these. It's a protein powder that you can just use it. Prepare it with water or something, or milk or whatever by itself, or you can use it to make smoothies. And so I overcomplicate things. And I thought, okay, I'll make this great smoothie. I have these frozen berries, and I have kale and spinach, and I have maca powder, and mushroom powder, all these things I can add to it. And by the time you do that, you've prepared a meal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like I did it on Thursday. I haven't done it
It's Thursday.
and we're recording this on a Sunday for people. So I have to, and I typed a note. There's like a portal for my naturopath. I typed a portal, and she basically typed back, just she didn't say these words, but just pour the shit in water, shake it up and drink it. Because that, by making it a big production, I'm not doing it. So anyway, this is not an earth-shattering check-in, but it's something that I think will allow me to, look forward to the next couple of decades with a healthy body.
I love that you say that, because to me, that is a common experience that I have, where I shoot for the moon, but then I don't land amongst the stars. I just don't shoot, right? I'm not going to hit the moon. End story.
So you don't draw back the arrow,
or maybe I like slowly let it. I'm like, not shooting.
You pull it back and think like, okay, maybe, okay. Yeah.
And like I've heard the phrase like, "Don't let perfect be the enemy of good."
Or done.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah. Yeah. And I see people do that a lot with the gym. Like, oh well, I'm not going to go and run 5 miles. So then, well, you don't go and walk too. Or not even the gym, but like physical activity. So. Thank you for that reminder.
Yeah. I'm getting there slowly but surely. But I needed the reminder from my naturopath. Just drink this shit, basically is what she's saying. So, yeah. I mean, if it had a decent taste, I could just like take the scoop, throw it in my throat, and just like swallow it.
Yeah.
If I really want.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go quite that far, but yeah. So what about with you? What's going on with you?
So I'm excited because I ordered a sign for my yard, and it says, I'm very excited. It says, "A woman's place is in the White House."
I love it.
I'm very, very excited. I'm not sure if I ever shared on here. I can't remember if I did or didn't, but a couple of years ago, I was walking through my neighborhood and I was very upset because it was Pride Month. And I was very upset. I didn't see a single pride flag. And I was just huffing and puffing to myself and just like, what is wrong with these people? Not even one person in this entire neighborhood. And I'm just walking around and thinking that in my mind, like, where is nobody in this whole neighborhood? And then I walk up on my house and realize I don't have one in my yard. So I got one, and then I left it up for Pride Month, and then I was going to take it down because Pride Month was over, and then I thought, no, I'm just going to leave it out. So I left it out, and I'll be out in my yard gardening, which is rare because I don't like to spend time gardening. So I'll be like out doing landscaping stuff, and then sometimes people will slowly drive by and roll down their window, and I'm like bracing, to get yelled at or something. And it's normally women saying like, "I really like your yard sign." I really like, because I also had a "In This House We Believe" sign.
Oh, I love that. I remember that.
Yeah.
I love that sign.
So I got a lot of positive feedback. So, and there definitely are more signs of another persuasion in my neighborhood. So it's extra important for me to show
represent.
Up.
Yeah.
To give people permission to exist differently. So,
and maybe other people in your neighborhood who initially didn't have the courage or just kind of wondered when they saw your sign, they thought, okay, well first of all, let's see let's see what happens to her. And then
right. Yeah.
So yeah, like you say, you're giving them permission to feel the way they want to feel.
Originally, then this kind of leads into our next topic. I was going to get childless cat ladies for Harris. And then I sat with that for a while. And while I really liked it, I decided to go with "A Woman's Place is in the White House."
Yeah.
So
I think it sounds more high road.
It definitely is.
More high road. And it's funnier. And I mean, they're both funny.
They're both very funny.
But this is
And they both hit a true place in me.
Oh, good. That's I would say that's the most important part.
Both of them fit for me. And I think I'm going to lead with "A Woman's Place is in the White House."
Yes. Because, truth in advertising, you don't have a cat.
I don't. And I'm not a cat person. And actually, that was one of the big reasons I was like, childless dog ladies?
It doesn't have it doesn't respond to the charge.
It does not. It does not. So, I also don't have a dog anymore.
Yeah. So there we go. So yeah.
So
but you can still be a dog lady.
I am a dog lady. I'm a proud dog lady.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
A dogless dog lady. Also a child-free.
A child-free.
A child-free and dogless.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's talk. Okay.
Let's talk about it.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So I did want to say before we get started that not all people who are child-free love children. I do think that some people just don't like kids, which is fine. I think as we kind of are prepping for this, both of us do love children. We both work with kids of different ages. So for us, we both do love children. That may not be true for all child-free people. And that's not to say that our experience is everyone's experience. And so before we talk about this, I'm aware that there is no right way to be a woman in our culture. Like, being a woman in our culture, it's impossible. Watch the Barbie movie and listen to America Ferrera's speech. And, so there's actually no wrong way. But this is a very complex topic. And so we are aware that people struggle with pregnancy loss. People struggle with infertility. People judge you if you do have kids. People judge you if you don't have kids. People judge the number of kids that you have. People judge the way you parent your kids. People judge the way you parent other people's children. Like, you care for nieces and nephews. Like, this is just an entirely like complicated and messy thing that our culture has wrapped around these very personal things. And so we just want to acknowledge that before we go in, that this can be an intense topic. And so we're going to enter into it like we do everything, with levity and
levity and love
and our own personal experiences,
and share, and hopefully sharing honestly our experience, and hoping that might provide entertainment, if nothing else. Right.
Raw, candid, and vulnerable.
Exactly.
Our tagline says.
Exactly. So let's talk about the term first of all, because one of the things that I don't know when I started to notice it, but moving from a childless woman to moving from being childless, which I always try to find terms that don't have the limit in it.
Right.
And so moving from childless to child-free. With the idea being is that this is not necessarily a lack, at least for me, the way I'm viewing it. It's not a lack on my part. It's a choice on my part. Okay. So anyway, the first time that term was recorded was 1901.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And but it only entered the common usage with feminism in the 70s.
That's not surprising.
Yeah. But the thing about the term that now, as opposed to originally, that it's also used to refer to parents who are currently living without children, because the children they've had children and the children may have moved out. They've grown up or for whatever reasons so it's not just a woman being child free. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then, as we're moving into like this historical sense, so let's gird our loins.
Here we go.
So for most of history, deciding that you're not going to have a child, or choosing to not have children, for both a couple or a woman, was a difficult choice. I mean, it was outside the norms of society and outside the expectations for a woman, particularly once you got married. And the only people who were kind of exempted from that would be celibate, and like monks and nuns and priests and stuff like that, and even people even made jokes about them and looked at them askance, etc. But things have changed.
Oh, yes.
Well, things have changed because some of the so some of the expectations, you're like, okay, let's roll with this. Let's see where this is going to go. But because the option of making that choice has become easier. Before, many women were expected to get married because that was their financial, that was their financial career, and once you got married, then you had children, it's kind of like all of these expectations, and women were not necessarily forced into, but that was the norm. That's if you were going to be normal, quote unquote normal, doing air quotes here, that was going to happen. You were going to get married and then have children, right? But women were able to, as they became more financially self-sufficient, were able to choose to not get married. And then the child choice becomes more of a choice. As we noted, primarily originally with celebrities, right? But, the idea of having children even if you weren't married was also became a choice, right? So there were a lot of choices along the way. Also, the availability of birth control.
Yay!
Were you just waiting for me to say that?
I was. In my mind, I'm like, birth control. Birth control. Birth control.
Yeah, because now you can actually make that choice. You can choose to live the life that you want to live, and that could include sexual activity, and still not have children. Okay, I'm hitting myself. And still not have children, right?
And not have children during, if something happened to you, like non-consensual sexual encounter or rape.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So sexual violence is still impactful, but it does not hold. It may not hold that impact.
At least that's the way it used to be,
right?
Yeah. And then the other, some of the other reasons are we just have better healthcare. So the idea is that we don't have to, because one of the one of the expectations was that you had children. So, first of all, they'll help around the farm, right? So they're manpower, but also they'll take care of you when you're older.
If that was true, we wouldn't have nursing homes on every corner.
We'll come back. Yes, we'll come back to expectations and reality, yes, right? Yeah. But that idea. So the idea that you no longer have to have children, so that you'll have someone to take care of you. Once we had Social Security, and just better healthcare. So people were staying healthier. They didn't need someone to take care of them. But that's kind of gotten complicated too. But those, with all of these social changes, that the expectation that a woman would have children for a number of reasons, regardless of her desires, was no longer a part of the equation.
What I hear, like, to summarize all of that, I hear as a woman, my value is not tied to reproducing children, and my safety and my well-being is not tied to whether or not I have children anymore, because I can open my own bank account, I can get my own house, and I can make choices for my own life. Like, I have autonomy. That's like the summary of all of that.
I love your summary. I feel like I had to give all the details.
You did.
I'm a professor, but
yeah.
But no, and you're right. That separation of your value from reproduction.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah.
Speaking of value from reproduction, the reason why this popped up for me, to reference back to that sign, that childless cat ladies.
Why we decided to do this episode.
Yes, why we decided to do this episode. One of the vice presidential candidates running on the vice presidential candidate on the Republican ticket is J.D. Vance. And I love that he has a weird obsession with American choosing to not have children. I love that you wrote that. I laughed. But he made some accusations saying that the left is, quote, trying to brainwash the minds of our children. He was suggesting that like childless teachers.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah, he was suggesting that childless teachers. He said, so many of the leaders on the left, and I hate to be so personal about this, but they're people without kids trying to brainwash the minds of our children, and that really disorients me and it really disturbs me. And which is interesting because you and I are both also teachers.
Yes, in fact.
So
we disturb and disorient. First of all, he spends a lot of time being disoriented, because he said that I think that's his term for saying that's like really, really weird, but he doesn't want to say that because it's been lofted at him. So it really disorients me.
Yeah,
we're disorienting. And disturbing.
My greatest goal in life is to disturb and disorient people like him. That is good. If I'm not disturbing and disorienting people like that, am I really living my life?
I know. I think I sent you the meme. Like, if you're not doing something that would have gotten you killed by the church 500 years ago, are you really living?
Are you really living? I got to be living a life that would have gotten me killed by the church. So let's go.
Oh, wait, and that's from the movie, not Practical, The Craft. The Craft. When the bus driver is like, he's like, be careful or something, and she said,
watch out for those weirdos.
Yeah. And what's her response?
Mister, we are the weirdos.
We are the weirdos, yes.
Oh, we are the weirdos, mister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Yeah. So, while I dislike him and all that, I do think that what he says, he's tapping into a vein, sometimes more or less obvious, sometimes spoken, sometimes unspoken.
Oh yeah.
In our culture.
Very much in our culture. And I would say that even though ostensibly in social media, in the media in general, excuse me, they're moving away from that type of kind of 1950s, 40s, 50s trope. It's just a part of our culture. And so what we're seeing are this movement in supposedly this not visual, but visible movement away from it, while it hasn't yet addressed all of the social norms and expectations of our society, right? So we're supposedly past that and beyond those types of things. But I like you said, he's tapping into something that is deep seated.
I do feel a freedom and permission to do these things. They are available to me. And I also at the same time feel constantly like I'm being like, in my mind there's like little pebbles being thrown at me.
Bombarded.
In all different directions about it. So.
And you've said this on a number of occasions, and I'd like to point this out too. As we talk about these choices, we're talking about this from a relative position of privilege, right? There are young women who, regardless of what we may see, feel as if just because of the way they're raised or where they are or the models that they have before them or what they feel are their options, that might be the only trajectory for them, right? So it's not that we've grown past it. On a certain level, we've begun to see past it, and some people are living past it, but it's still there.
Yes.
And for many people, it's a very real and probably the only viable option that they see. So yeah, I think I need to always keep that in mind, that not everybody's as perfect as I am. No, just joking. But so one of the things that I love about these ideas, the critiques of child-free living. First of all, that you're selfish. That when you're doing this, that you're selfish because you're maybe in a position of privilege, et cetera, but also that what are you going to do when you get older and you don't have kids? I'm trying to think, what is the
that never, this one is
that you'll wind up being lonely and sad when you get older, and
you're gonna regret it.
You're gonna regret it, after. So I'm past that stage, and I'm not regretting it. But what I find so when people say these things, I think it says more about them than about my situation, and they're giving me some insight into how, I don't know, how they're viewing life or whatever. And as you've said, a lot of those critiques are not based on fact.
They really aren't.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, like you said, nursing homes, and granted our society has fractured. So in a certain way, the family norms have fractured for good or for ill. In some cases, for good. We have increased mobility, and because of that, then there's less. You have these children, and then they stay with you. I mean, y'all stay together for the rest of until somebody dies. Maybe you, right? So that all of that's changed.
And there are many people who are loved and placed in nursing homes, and the nursing homes are great. I've done, my partner and I have, we performed in this one nursing home, and I was like, holy moly, can I live here now?
Yeah. I know which ones you probably.
Yeah, they're wonderful. And of course, that's not everyone's experience, but this idea that like, if I don't have kids, no one's going to take care of me when I get older, that's just not the way that it is.
I don't think I put it in our outline, but one of the articles I read, the woman, people talk about that, and a woman said that she worked in a nursery home, and she said that I'm trying to remember the number of people who get visits from like their family members just kind of reflects the fact that, yeah, you're being taken care of, and you're being taken care of. Thank God you're being taken care of. But having children are no guarantee that you will have that companionship, that love, et cetera, because they have busy lives too. Because if they didn't, they could probably make you fit in their lives, or your health issues or whatever. But, that idea that, yeah, having children is going to mean that you're not going to be lonely when you get older, unless you're in my family, just saying.
That's true.
Because you're never going to be lonely, my friend.
You might want a little more space sometimes.
Yeah, go home now. Yeah. But still, yeah. So, these expectations, I put a lot of pressure on children. Mm-hmm. And when I say children, I don't mean necessarily young people, but, your children throughout their ages, right?
Yeah, I think being cared for and cared about are two different things. And people might be being cared for in their old age, but they may not be being cared about. And that's for a lot of reasons, and some of them very valid.
Yeah. And to be fair, being cared about looks a lot different for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, what it looks like for the older people in the nursing homes may not be what it looks like for their children, right? So, and that's another topic for a different different episode. But studies have shown, and I cited I have an outline, because one of the things I'm just going to, a little truth in advertising here, is when I talk about things, I can talk about my experience, but then when I move into, I hear this and I hear that, I like to actually have some support. So I did a little research, and I found a couple of articles, and basically the idea is that studies have shown that that there is a gap in happiness between parents and the child free in favor of the latter. So even in places where you have all of these wonderful structures in place to support parenting, that just across the board, the child free tend to have just higher levels of happiness. Just saying.
I mean, that's my experience.
Yeah.
My personal experience.
Yeah. And on average, this is and you understanding that the questions could be framed in certain ways that they get certain answers or whatever. But on average, the studies have shown that women with no children are among the happiest in society. Yay!
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I can control that. That just burst out of me.
And so that's my anecdotal evidence shows that that's true from the people that I see. It doesn't mean life is perfect for us. And I would say that rings true for me. But one of the reasons why I think that is so revolutionary to hear is that it's not okay for people with children to admit how hard it is.
Oh my gosh,
or
yes.
to say that they didn't want children and then they did have children and it's bad.
Yeah.
And that they love their kid, but they hate their life. Or they wake up every morning and it just seems like
a slog.
A slog again. It's going to be an 18-year slog. And a lot of this stuff is pretty familiar to me because I love TikTok, and I'm on a wonderful side of TikTok. And one of the parts of TikTok that I get is a lot of child-free content on TikTok. And there's a subreddit called Regretful Parents.
I was directed to something similar.
Yeah. And then on TikTok, there's some people who read from the Regretful Parents subreddit. So I consume a lot there as well. And just listening, and most of them they're anonymous, and they've given permission to be read on this subreddit. But these stories of people who, they range from, I never wanted children, but then my husband said he wanted children, and I said okay because he said it was going to be great, and now he's never around, and I'm raising this kid all by myself. Wow. To I wanted children, and then I had them, and now it's just absolutely horrible.
Never mind.
Yeah, and I love my kid, but I hate my life. But it's just, for me, it's really refreshing to read these stories. Because that's just, we don't hear that. And not that that's every person's experience. No. But it's like truth in advertising. If I'm going to buy a vehicle, I want to know the good and the bad about the vehicle. Great gas mileage, but uncomfortable seats.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to know all of it. I don't want to be just told it's great gas mileage, and then I'm sitting in the car and I'm like, these seats suck. I want to know everything.
Yes.
I want to know how people experience it. And I just don't think there's not integrity in our culture if we don't honor the complete fullness of the experience.
Exactly. And to be devil's advocate. To play the devil's advocate.
There you
go. And to be fair, there are people who said that they never regretted it, that they enjoy, even through like the colicky, up all night type of things, that the reward so much outweighs any of the challenges. So I really want to put that out there, that there are people who are pedal to the metal. I do this again in a heartbeat, give me 5 more or whatever. So recognizing that is also a great part of our society. Thank God, because if they depended on people like me, we die out.
Well,
so,
I wouldn't have a career. I wouldn't have kids to teach.
Exactly.
Nobody would be in our colleges.
Exactly. So it's a good thing. But let's talk a little bit about why other people have in some of our research, some of the reasons that people have given for being child free. I mentioned just the economic benefits for women, but so this is, and I think this is from one of the this is from an article. Some said they just never had the desire. They just never, it was never like, oh, I want children. It never even occurred to them. Some people had been abused, had tough childhoods, and in both cases they were afraid of the institution of mother-child, that whole thing, or they were afraid of continuing the cycle of abuse, or just other problems that they saw with the relationship between parents and children. So they just didn't want to duplicate that. Some saw that, and I mentioned this. Oh yeah, this is okay. I have it here. Saw that having children didn't necessarily guarantee someone would be there when you're older. And this is where this is an Ask Reddit response. My wife worked at a nursing home for years. Imagine seeing for years that over 95% of old people never have family visit till they die, and people want a piece of the pie. This is when I learned that the whole, well, who is going to visit you or take care of you when you're older line is complete bullshit. We decided to not have kids ever after that. Made great friends and saw the world. No regrets. Wow. I knew I read it somewhere, but it's like, don't have kids thinking that the kids are going to owe you a thing. You have kids, in my opinion, have kids because you want children.
Right.
Because anything else is you're putting a burden on them to do something that's in your picture and not necessarily theirs.
Yeah, that's real entitlement energy there. Yeah.
So other reasons that people gave for being child free.
Dink. Dual income, no kids. Woo! Welcome to Dinkville.
Welcome to Dinkville. Yes, I am the queen of Dinkville. Yes, just more financial stability, more flexibility. I love that. So there's that. And then there's the pessimism about like our climate and about the, where the planet's going, global stability. Other people are concerned about work-life balance with good reason. I mean, I don't even have kids and I have problems with work-life balance. So, there's that. And then a dear friend of mine, she actually has trauma around babies and children, like being with other people's children, even hearing about babies and babies crying and stuff will send her right out of the room. So there's a lot of, I don't know how common that is, but I just, that when we started having this conversation, because I love babies, I love children, but having this conversation with her opened my eyes to, there are people who really, I know that they didn't want to have children, but there are people who just can't be around children. I mean, it's not like they hate children, they cannot be around children. That was an eye-opener for me. And then the idea is that, like I mentioned earlier, women have just more choices now, so they can say, I never had the desire, and make choices based on that rather than what's expected. I mean, like I said, you often have to be in a more privileged position to be able to make those choices, but the possibility exists.
So, I've known you for a long time.
Oh, yes, we have.
Yes, and I realized as we were getting ready to record this episode that I obviously know you're child free, and I had never actually had the conversation with you about your story behind that. So I'm actually really excited because I don't know your story. So I was curious if you would be willing to share.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I had intensely, incredibly, desperately wanted children in my 20s. And early 30s. I love babies. I still love babies. I'll talk about that in a bit. I love children. I love first graders. I love kindergartners. I love preschoolers. I'm one of the few people who taught in my middle school who actually loved middle schoolers. Like the rest of them were like, okay, we're just suffering. I loved them. I loved their goofiness. I loved the fact that they're like trying to be cool, but if you could get them, they will do like the dirtiest, the most gross, the funniest, the stupidest, most embarrassing thing if you can get them. And I love that. And I like teaching high school and college. And so but I didn't find I was doing the traditional route. I didn't find a partner, a staying partner, a keeper. And I was really resentful of that, and I was kind of bitter, and which probably didn't help me get the partner and the children, And at one point, I remember in my late 20s, I was thinking about, because I remember my favorite cousin, my favorite aunt said, "You don't need no husband to have a child, baby." It's like, and it's true. And in my family, we're kind of straight arrows, but we do kind of chart our own ways. And so she said, because I remember having this discussion with her, and she said, "Well, if you want a child, just have a child." And so I actually contemplated that. I didn't, and by my mid 30s, a lot of my friends and family members as well, were having children, and I just started kind of looking at them. And seeing not change, but some changes obviously, but I was just comparing like their moods, their energy levels, their attitudes, and stuff like that, and I began to think, I don't know if this is really for me, and I think part of it is if I had children, obviously, like our bodies are constructed so the best time to have your children are like your late teens and your early 20s because you have energy, you have all of this kind of stuff, you don't know any better, so you don't know but once I started getting into my 30s, I began to, and I'd been living on my own and having my own money and all that kind of stuff. I began to look at that and think, okay, I still would love to have children, and this is looking a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Another part of this was, as we know, I said Enneagram 3, but I'm an Enneagram 2. Anyway, I'm in my unbalanced Enneagram form. I am very much tied into making everyone around me happy, pleasing, people pleaser, pleasing everyone, and subsuming my own needs and desires in and other people's happiness. And I could see that would happen with my children. And I really didn't want to live that life. I started to see that I didn't know at the time that I was an Enneagram 2, but I saw that tendency in myself. So by my mid 30s, I had stepped away from that choice. I said, you know what? It didn't happen, and now I'm kind of glad it didn't happen. And it's so funny because as a Libra, I'm constantly second, third, fourth guessing myself. But once I actually admitted that to myself, I never looked back. It was one of the few times, except the next time was my divorce, but one of the few times where I made a decision and never doubted it at all, never regretted it, etc., etc. So I still love children. Anytime any of my local people have a baby, a part of their shower gift is me offering 10 to 15 hours of babysitting. I love having kids and stuff at my Christmas party. I have my godchildren who I love intensely, and I think they love me back. And then I also have step-grands, and so that's kind of scratching that itch for me. Because I really do. I love I love the energy. I love the connection. I love the type of connection that you have with children, which is different than the type that I have with you or whatever. And it's not the same. That's the connection that I have. So that's where I am. Did that kind of answer your question? Yeah. So what about you?
So I kind of straddled two worlds where I never really wanted kids, but I also felt the societal pressure. It's like for me, it's like being in a river and I'm being pulled by the river.
Yes.
You know, like that's just what was modeled for me. That's what all my family members did. That's what I saw on TV. You know, that's just kind of what was expected, even unspoken or spoken, you know, both.
Oh, it was spoken, at least in my family.
You know, I don't know that, I don't know that I was ever told, like, so you're going to grow up, get married, and have kids. Like, I wasn't ever told that, but it was implied and expected. And,
Gotcha.
And I also received messages culturally that was what I was supposed to do. But, like, as a kid, I mean, I did have baby dolls, kind of. Yeah, but like I was much more likely to like be outside playing cops and robbers or detective or riding bikes. You know, like I definitely was not or Legos. I loved Legos, you know. I did have Barbies. But like I was definitely more into creative and physical play than like playing a homemaker.
Mm-hmm.
And I love kids. I grew up like always playing with kids. When I was in college, I coached gymnastics because I loved working with kids and being physical. I started working at a summer camp. I'm a teacher, so like I'm there. I still work at a summer camp. I'm in my 40s. I still go back to summer camp. But for me, kids and animals are always more authentic than adults, or not always, but tend to be. Yes. So I would rather this happens at like large functions where there are groups of adults and kids playing. I tend to gravitate towards playing with the kids. Even though I'm 40 years old, I would rather be running around and jumping off of the dock into a lake with a group of kids than sitting on the side of the lake with a drink in my hand talking. And that's okay for them, but like that's I would rather be doing that.
If you have those two choices, one is a clear winner.
I am going to be with the kids jumping into the lake than the other one. And that's just more fun for me. So that's just kind of how my life unfolded. It's just the way that it is. But for me, being child-free was more of a less of a conscious choice and more of an unfolding, and then a realization that like my life just kind of unfolded in a way that made the opportunity to have children like not really available to me. Now, your family is wise. You do not need to be married or partnered to have a child, right? Like, duh. But also like, yeah, that's true, you know? But for me, like my life just unfolded in a way where my previous marriage, that was not an option. And then I was single and dating, and now I'm partnered again. But I never really had the opportunity where it presented itself in a way that made it sound like something that I wanted. But I really want to stress, like, I take responsibility. I don't feel victimized in that way about it, because I could at any point in time. Like, it is very easy to get pregnant.
Yes, it is.
With or without another person. Like,
yeah.
I could, you know.
Oh, yeah. I was like, wait, what? Okay, that took a moment. Sorry, go on.
They have at-home turkey-based turkey. Yes, you can get them on Amazon. Like,
no!
Yeah, you can do
like, just like inject the thing?
Well, you need a donor, but...
Oh, okay, gotcha, okay.
But I'm just saying, like...
Okay.
And not that people who struggle with infertility is just like easy smeezy.
No.
But there are I don't want to sound like I'm playing a victim here. Mm-hmm. Like, if it was something that I really wanted, I could have gone after it. I'm just saying that the way my life unfolded, I was never really offered the situation where I was like, okay, this is like a viable choice where I feel like both choosing to have a kid or not to have a kid both have good options. Which one do I want? I don't really feel like that was ever offered to me.
So you never actually made a choice.
I don't think.
Okay, gotcha.
In that way, I don't really feel like I was ever sitting there like, even with a partner or without a partner, saying like, okay, so let's talk about this decision. Do I want to or do I not? For me, there was never a suitable opportunity.
Gotcha.
And so I guess part of me was just kind of like waiting for the opportunity to arise so that then I could have the conversation and make a choice.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But then it never really arose. And then my life was awesome and kept moving forward. And then I started to realize that the window was closing. And
my clock is ticking here.
But instead of like the clock is ticking, time is running out, I better get on that baby train. It was more like, oh, the clock is ticking, time is running out, I guess it's not happening.
Gotcha.
Or I guess I'm not going to have that. I guess I'm not going to have that conversation where I end up making the choice. It just seems like the choice has kind of run its course in front of me, and I'm at peace with that. And what I do want to say is that I have big feelings.
No, wait. Really?
And I'm also in a position where I think I can see things that maybe other people just take for granted. And so because of that, I see that our culture is set up to honor and recognize women in their relationship to men as people who have children. So,
oh yeah.
So as someone who is unmarried and who does not have a child, I just see a lot of, sometimes I feel more invisible in our culture. So, there's not a, there is Mother's Day, which comes with its own drama. Yes. But there is not a childless Aunt Day.
Cool Aunt Day.
Right? Child-free Aunt Day. There are baby showers, but there's not child-free showers. Our society is structured around, well, you have kids and then that's how you make friends. You go to like parent groups or mommy meetups, or you do like the PTA, and that's how your life is supposed to be. And so I experience grief over feeling somewhat missed by our culture, not honored by our culture. There's not space in our culture as much or in that way. And so it can feel sometimes lonely for me. I can feel skipped over or not valued. Even down to like on holidays, whose house do we go to? Well, we go to the house with the kid. And I think that's actually like logistically super important because like we want to be around the kids' toys and it's easier for the parents, and I get that and I'm so supportive of that. And at some point it would be nice to be considered. Not even that I want to host, like not that I need to host. Like hosting does not bring me joy like it does to some people. Like some people like want to host, but it's really not about the hosting. It's about being a part of that family unit and being considered and not being overlooked just because I don't have a child.
Right.
And that dynamic shows up in a lot of places for me. Well, you can stay late because you don't have kids. I have to get home for the kid, to pick up my daughter or whatever. But like you don't have kids. Like you can come in, you can do this.
Yeah.
You can't be tired because you don't have kids. So why are you tired?
Because I have a life. Yeah.
Right. But like that, so I experience that dynamic, and that can feel very lonely and othering.
Mm-hmm. I never thought of it quite that way, but I so hear that it's not that you're not. It sounds to me that it's not that you're not a part of you're one of the cogs in the family, but they just kind of gravitate to the ones who require the most support. Mm-hmm. And those are usually the people with children, mm-hmm. which on another level is, it's, oh yeah, I'm not seen, but it's like, also, I'm not seen. Like I'll never have to host. And that brings me to one of the other things. I think I alluded to this earlier. And that I was more sensitive to, I think for me, was this idea that child-free people are selfish. That, oh yeah, you just go and you just worry about yourself and you take vacations and, you go out to dinner and you can do all this kind of stuff. Yeah, I can.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, I had the great idea to walk 300 miles across Spain in the mountains.
And I didn't have to worry about, exactly, No, and I think it's, again, when we talk about these ideas, these critiques, in this case, I think it's more of a fear. I don't hear people saying that to me, but I think I'm expecting to hear people saying that because I think inwardly there's like a little guilt. Like, yeah, I don't have any kids. I can just do whatever you know what I mean? And so there's some processing. So actually, recording this episode and doing some of the readings for the episode has allowed me to kind of process some things that I think have existed from the time I was in my 30s that I've just never. I mean, it's just never come up, and so it's allowed those to come up. Joy, yay!
I think, like, hearing everything we're saying is being child-free is not perfect. Having children is not perfect.
Exactly.
Right? There are challenges and wonderful opportunities with both. So to minimize it and shrink it down to say, like, well, having kids good, having kids not bad, or having kids bad, having no kids good. Like, whatever, like, both of those are incorrect.
Too simplistic. Yeah,
definitely too simplistic. So I think it's, for me, it's unshackling myself from the cultural narrative, awakening myself to the realities of both, and then tying into both in ways that are where I'm really understanding and seeing people for who they are and the experiences that they're having, and honoring that no matter the choice.
I love that. Yes. Yeah.
And that's hard, and that takes time and energy.
Yes, it does.
And like some deprogramming, like decolonizing, depatriarchalizing, initiate depatriarchalizing process. Like, and that's tough.
It is tough. And I mean, it's so funny because this is when we had this idea to have this episode, I just thought, okay, I didn't realize that I still had some stuff to work through. So it's there. And I actually, it doesn't sound like it. I sound very resentful, but I really do welcome the opportunity to kind of pull something out that, whoa, this unexamined thing that's shadow. It's a shadow, right? That's allowing me that's keeping me from really enjoying this to its fullest. Yeah. So speaking of shadow, we've been talking a lot from our experiences just as women out in the culture, in the dominant culture. I'd love if we could kind of talk a little bit about some of the witchy impacts of being a child-free woman. Would you care to go with me there?
I would love that.
Okay.
And I know that one of my biggest avenues into seeing child-free modeled in really powerful ways has been in our circle. And I love that.
Me too. But again, we have a lot of archetypes for the divine feminine that still comes from our culture, right? I mean, they're intertwined, right? They didn't develop in two different streams. Here's secular, or here's sacred. They're definitely intertwined. And I mean, we could just sit down with Christianity and, that would be like a series. We're not going to. We're going to stick with the witchy impact. But one of the things that I thought about is the maiden, mother, crone archetypes. And now a lot of places, and this excites me, is the maiden, mother, guardian crone. They've added the guardian because that's someone who is outside the maiden and the mother. And I really like that. But
could I share another one I've
sure,
heard?
Yeah.
Child creatrix guardian. And I can't remember. I've also seen child be something else about it has like playful energy around it, or explorative. Maybe it's explorer creator. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But the idea with that is to totally remove because I have always struggled with. I've wanted to like that, but that maiden, mother, crone. But I've always struggled with it as a witch, and I didn't really know why. And it wasn't until I started reading about like some problematic witchcraft stuff. And it's because it's centered...
Another episode.
Yeah. It's centered around like childbearing and service to men.
Yes!
Like a patriarchal structure for women. And then also, like, we don't even have time to start unpacking, like, what does it mean to be a woman? What if you don't menstruate?
Yes.
What if you can't have children?
Yes.
What if I don't have a womb?
But exactly. Yes.
Like,
yeah.
Does that mean I'm not a woman? Does that not mean I'm part of the goddess archetype? And like, that's a whole other episode in itself.
Sure.
But
yeah.
I've really, as someone who never felt that urge to have children, and other things too, I've never really felt tied into that maiden, mother, crone archetype. So then whenever I found out other people didn't too, I was like, yay, it's not just me.
Exactly. And yeah, and I when you were talking about that, people who don't menstruate or whatever, you know, we have all of this ritual around the creative aspect of the womb. You know, from that is where your creativity comes, and you know, that's where you physically create, and where women can create, men, you know, that the thing that makes us women, because men can't do that. And then so what if you had a hysterectomy? Okay, and my big thing is, what do you do? And even if you don't have a hysterectomy, you have a womb that's never had a seed in it, right? What do you do with body parts that aren't being used, quote unquote, I'm doing air quotes, for the purposes that they were created, right? And so how do I balance the fact that, you know, that I was given a womb and then I am not using it. I've chosen to not use a part of my body. I don't know the answer to that, but I'm just saying, you know, because of this emphasis on this on the womb, that's problematized for women who have chosen not to have to not embody the mother archetype. Right. And so what do we do instead? Like, what kind of, you know, so we've made that choice. Does that mean we have to make all of these other choices in witchy circles? Right.
My womb, my uterus, it's crampy. I bleed.
Oh.
It's inconvenient. It causes me to get gassy, and it makes working out hard. Like, I don't have woo-woo magical energy around it.
You're not loving the woo-woo.
I'm not. And I've struggled in women's only spaces. Sometimes they're called like moon circles. And then even like one year at a certain like goddess festival that I would always go to with my niece and my sister and some other women from our circle, they built a temple in the shape of a uterus and ovaries, and I'm like all about that, because I'm all about like supporting, normalizing that. But I definitely sat in some circles there where I was just like, this is not me. Like, we are clearly viewing this like differently, and like, I did not feel, I was not vibing with that like woo woo womany energy.
So when that happened, when you were not vibing, how did you feel? Like, what was your emotional response?
My emotional response was, I experience womanhood and whatever the hell that means differently than them. But I think I was okay because I had our circle where I did feel seen and wanted. If I did not have our circle where I didn't have examples shown to me where I felt valid and validated and okay, I might have made some decisions about paganism not being the place for me.
Gotcha. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. So when I find, again, you know, you know, it's so funny. I think I spend most of my life as a black woman in predominantly white circles, you know, where I teach, etc. You know, kind of translating what people say so that it works for me. And I really love Zoom and I have an iPhone, the messages, because I can get a black hand when we do the thumbs up, you know, like a brown hand for thumbs up, and it pisses me off. Like, I think it's Slack or Band or some places where they only have like the little yellow hand. You know, so things like that. I think I don't consider them microaggressions, but I do consider them like chipping away at my ability to interact with the world. And so I find that I spend a lot of time translating womb tropes and mothering tropes to something that pings for me, that works for me. Not so much in our group, because our group tends to do a lot of open language. So they tend to not take you in a direction. They tend to ask you questions where you can go wherever, which I think is super, super useful. So I'm not confronted with it as much as even when we joined, and when I joined the group, which was before you did. So I don't have to do it as much, which I so appreciate. I find that our group really supports us kind of creating our own experience as we're in ritual. And so that has been super helpful. But when I work with other groups, I do notice that I'm sitting there spending a whole lot of time feeling, okay, what does that mean for me? You know? So one of the things that when I was looking at this, I was looking at an article in The Guardian. It's a British paper, and it was like a little video clip of this woman, and someone asked her the question, what are you going to do when you're old and alone? And the woman stops for a second, and then she said, whatever I want. That's what I'll do. I just love that idea that, oh, I'm old, I'm alone. No, I'm old, but I'm able to do whatever I want because I'm alone. I don't have to worry about other people. I don't have to make other people happy. I think of that when I want to travel. I always go first to, okay, who can I invite with me? Then I think, and sometimes I do invite people and we do stuff together. There's a couple of people that I travel with really well, but sometimes I just say, you know what, fuck it. I'm just going to go by myself, because then I don't have to worry about somebody being, will they be happy with this? I can just do whatever I want. And when I saw that, I thought, you go, girl. I love that.
I love that too. When I read that, I read it as, what are you going to do when you're old, since you're a woman and you don't have children, and children are what's most important, and you didn't engage in that, so then you're going to live a fucked up old life. What are you going to do? And she's basically given a middle finger to the culture, being like, I am an independent human.
I'm going to do whatever.
I'm going to do whatever the hell I want.
Yeah. Because I don't have to worry about it.
And be happy.
Yes.
So go her.
Go her.
May I find that in myself in my old age.
Boy, howdy. Yeah.
So our poem today is by Rachel Oates, and it's called Room. It's from her book, which is called Reflections on Healing, and it's her first 17 poems, as well as her photography. And in that collection, she talks a lot about her journey of healing, both from trauma as well as her analyzing on that her experience on an emotional level, as well as like a more thoughtful level, as she talks about what she's been through with her body and her health struggles and her mental struggles. So it's like a pretty intense and pretty cool collection. She did perform this at Glastonbury Festival of Contemporary Performing Arts in 2022.
And is this the video on? No, that's not her performance. That's just she has a video of this.
Yeah, you can either Google Rachel Oates Room, ROMB, or you can go to YouTube and search for it, but it's there, and she also has a website. It's
pretty cool. And I just want to talk about the word room again, because she's playing, it's a play on the sound, but she's spelling it like womb, but it's with an R. So I just think that's a super powerful, yeah,
it gives me goosebumps.
Yeah, it's a super powerful reframing.
Room by Rachel Oates. There's a room in my house that everyone has an opinion about. Some days I'll be sitting at home when a gaggle of people barge in, uninvited, to inspect the room. They warn me, it's no use sitting empty. Think of the potential. Be more grateful. Some people aren't lucky enough to have a room like this. I'm sorry for them, of course, but why do they get to decide? Why do what I do with my room in my house?
Daily, I'm interrogated from every angle. How many people have passed through here? how long did they stay? And then, squinting at me with hushed voices, did they leave or did... Ooh. Mm. And then, squinting at me with hushed voices, did they leave or did you evict them? They look at me like I'm a monster, a landlord from hell, to a room that's always been vacant.
This just won't do, they chastise. And who wants an old, used room anyway? Storming out in disgust, they don't hear my sigh of relief. As the years go by, I place a padlock and chain around the room, only to have men in suits show up with paper bolt cutters to tear it down. Men, women, and children saunter in with buckets of paint, ladders, hammers, and a measuring tape. They legislate to redecorate before, in their words, it gets too late.
They tell me I need a minimum of 3 previous occupants and to marry a man who'll decide for me before they trust a silly little woman like me to place a lock on her own property. Without my locks, I live in fear that one day I'll wake up and find an unwanted guest in my spare room. A plague or pest or a strange dark mold will sneak in. At first, so subtle that I don't even notice it. But quickly and quietly, it will spread through the rest of my home, decaying and degrading as it goes.
The neighbors pop round and tut at me as I'm furiously scrubbing the walls until I bleed to remind me that each life is precious and that they'd kill for a spore or two of their own. They don't realize that where they see pets and guests, I see only pain and pests, so unwelcome. I'd rather burn my home to the ground than keep them there. A friend of mine has a roommate who keeps her up all night and makes a lot of noise and leaves her stuff all over the house. And she often asks me, with bags under her eyes and pity on her face and just a quiet hint of envy in her voice, doesn't it get quiet? Lonely? Sad?
Sure, you like the silence now, she warns. But what about the future? You'll change your mind. I want to remind her that I didn't comment when she painted her walls bright pink, or spent 3 months' wages on a new sofa, or built 2 new extensions before she paid off the first. But I don't, because it's still not my business. There's a room in my house, and sometimes it feels like everyone's voice is louder than mine. But when I'm alone, I can sit in that room and enjoy it, appreciate it, really get to know it. I run my fingers along its smooth walls, lay on the thick, soft carpets, and stare up at the unblemished ceiling.
I bask in the calm and the quiet and inhale the scent of freedom and home and the joy of being alone that is so uniquely me. And once I've reminded myself that empty does not mean it is without purpose, without beauty, without joy. Empty is not lonely or cold or wasted potential. Empty is exactly what I make of it.
My responsibility, my gift and my burden. And I won't bend or break or lean or fall. I'll maintain my right to close the door because I can.
I close the door because there's a room in my house and it's all mine.
I want to cry.
Thank you so much for joining us in our special house, in our room that's different from others. And thank you for witnessing that and joining us here. We hope you have enjoyed the magic that has unfolded here at Witchy Wit.
It would be great if you would help make Witchy Wit possible and get access to exclusive content by donating on Patreon.
We'd love it if you join our Witchy community and enjoy shareable content on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Would you do us a big favor and support us by rating and reviewing us wherever you get your podcasts? It's free and helps witchy folks find us.
Feel free to email us at witchywitpodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from our community. Reach out and let us know what's brewing in your cauldron.
New episodes are released every second and fourth Friday. Follow us on your favorite podcasting platform so our episodes go right to your playlist. You can listen as you ride your broom.
Stay witchy, y'all!